For a whole year, I've been at risk of losing everything stored on the hard drives of my NAS. Documents, videos, photos, everything I've saved since I got my very first computer. My entire life is inside that little black box, and this week I decided that enough is enough, it was time to take action and finally stop thinking during every single morning walk that everything could disappear any day now. As much as I try to clear my mind during my long morning walks to take care of my health, my thoughts always drift back to my unfinished business. And the NAS has been one of those ever since that orange warning light first came on. It was April 2024, as we were getting ready to travel to Paris, when the NAS first alerted me that something was wrong with one of the 4 hard drives. Since I didn't have time to deal with it, and after reading that replacing the drive wasn't immediately critical after the first warning, I decided to postpone the fix until we got back from France. But even after we returned, I kept putting it off, even though the NAS stayed in warning mode. I had more urgent problems to deal with throughout 2024, and so the repair never made it to the top of my priority list. Until we got to this April, when I finally said enough is enough. It was time to deal with it. Life in general is full of obstacles. Just when you start to gain momentum and it feels like you've got everything in order, life throws a new problem right in front of you. Just like the red tape I ran into during my walk this week, blocking the path I religiously follow every single day. Of course, it's not the first time this has happened. The older you get, the more you realize that problems never really stop coming. You just solve as many as you can, as best as you can, and you keep going. Even if that means some problems you'll simply ignore or postpone for a better moment. And that moment, of course, depends on the consequences of not dealing with the problem right away. So a whole year went by with my NAS constantly warning me about the risks. At first, the risk was just that one of the drives had started showing signs of failure. Since it was still working, I kept postponing the repair. But a few months ago, that drive moved from critical to failing. Out of the 4 drives, only 3 were still running. It would only take one more drive to fail for me to lose everything, given how I've set up the NAS. The risk had now become much bigger, because now I was at risk of losing things that are truly irreplaceable. As I was driving my daughter to school, I kept thinking, the NAS doesn't just hold my work files, it's full of family memories too, priceless documents and data that would take me forever to recover, if at all. Photos from the first months of our relationship, videos of my daughter's first steps, moments that should never be lost. Inside that box are 11 years of my daughter's life carefully documented. I couldn't let 11 years of memories disappear just because I was busy dealing with other problems. The solution had been staring me in the face all along. I just needed to swap out one hard drive. How hard could that be? It shouldn't have taken me more than 5 to 10 minutes to secure 11 years of memories and 30 years of work. It really was a no-brainer. Before I sat down to finally fix the NAS, I took a moment to watch some YouTube over breakfast. It's something I usually do after my morning walk once I'm home alone. Watching other YouTube creators inspires me, keeps me motivated to pick up the camera myself. But this morning, the blinking lights of the NAS right under the TV kept reminding me of the risk, the very real risk of losing everything. I couldn't even enjoy my breakfast properly, let alone relax with some YouTube videos. If I wanted to truly enjoy my mornings again, I had to take care of the NAS first. When the NAS first warned me about the hard drive issue a year ago, I didn't just sit back and do nothing. I actually bought a new hard drive right away, planning to replace the faulty one as soon as it completely failed. And this week, it was finally time to take it out of its packaging for the very first time. I had never dealt with this kind of problem before, not once in the 8 years that the NAS has been running 24/7 non-stop. So naturally, my first move was to ask Google. Luckily, I didn't have to dig through endless forums and websites. Synology had clear official instructions on how to replace the hard drive. The truth is, anything new tends to stress me out. I love my routines, and anything unfamiliar throws me off. I feel uncomfortable the moment I step out of my usual flow. But I had to fix this issue. I couldn't keep postponing it any longer. So I deactivated drive 4, which meant my storage pool was now officially running on just 3 drives, thanks to its built-in redundancy. The next step was to manually remove the faulty drive, something I had never done before in these 8 years. When I opened the NAS cover, it felt like opening a time capsule. Dust was everywhere. Normally, I clean the NAS once a year, especially before summer to prevent any overheating issues, something very common here in Greece with our famously hot summers. So this was a good chance to give it at least a quick clean. Normally, I would disconnect the NAS completely and take it out to the balcony to clean it properly. But this time, since I was in a rush to replace the drive, I gave it a quick cleanup with plans to give it a thorough one in the coming weeks, once I would no longer have to stress of potentially losing everything inside. Now the moment had come to remove the old drive and insert the new one, something I had never done before. Replacing the hard drive turned out not to be as hard as I thought. Even though I couldn't quite remember how to get the drive out of the tray, it only took me about 2 minutes to get the new drive into the NAS. My stress level dropped a bit once I saw the fourth green light come back on. Finally! All that was left now was to go back to my desk and rebuild the storage pool. But the moment I saw the first access error message, my anxiety shot right back up. Okay, I thought, no big deal, it's a new drive, maybe it just needs a second to be recognized. Happens sometimes. I've built so many PCs in my life, I know better than to expect everything to work perfectly the first time. But when I tried to repair the storage pool, Synology wouldn't even let me select the fourth drive. That's when the alarm bells really started going on. Things were getting serious. I immediately checked the health status of the new drive. Well, at least the NAS could see it. Not initialized. Maybe it just needed formatting, I thought. Maybe it was some weird file system thing. I've been burned before with FAT32 and NTFS issues. I tried assigning it as a hot spare. No luck. Synology flat out refused to use the drive. At this point, I was seriously getting worried. What was I missing? What hadn't I read properly? What did I forget? Suddenly, what was supposed to be a 10-minute task was clearly going to take much longer. The storage pool stayed in a degraded state, and no matter how many times I hit repair pool, the NAS just did nothing. So I did what always fixes things. I rebooted it. Now I was really staring at the scenario I had hoped to avoid, losing over an hour to a job that seemed so simple. And it's not like I didn't have other things to do that day. I already had a long to-do list, but instead I was trapped, stuck trying to figure out why this NAS was refusing to cooperate. After the reboot, I searched online again to see what else I could try. One suggestion was to restore the disk database. Worth a shot. But no. Still no change. Time to get serious. Let's update the NAS firmware. Another time-consuming step, but finally, this time, the NAS let me select drive 4. Finally, a glimmer of hope after more than an hour wasted. For the first time, it felt like I was making progress. Maybe this really was an issue of outdated firmware, not something I had done wrong. I let myself feel a bit optimistic for a few seconds, until the NAS hit me with a message, "System failed to repair storage pool." What a letdown! I had already spent almost 2 hours, and by this point I was convinced this wasn't getting fixed that day. No matter what I tried, it just wasn't working. Big disappointment. For the first time, my biggest fear crossed my mind. What if there's an issue with the hard drive itself? After 40 years of working with computers, could I really have my first faulty drive on my hands? I couldn't believe it. Maybe, I thought, the drive just wasn't compatible with my Synology NAS. But no, that couldn't be it. When I bought the drive a year ago, I made sure it was on Synology's official compatibility list of third-party hard drives. Everything pointed to the worst-case scenario. The new hard drive was faulty. And until I could confirm that for sure, I was still at risk of losing everything.